When the story first broke, it didn't seem real. Tamar Braxton, found shaken, bloodied, and broken, after what sources called a confrontation gone too far. The name attached to the chaos shocked everyone, Yandy Smith. Two women from completely different lanes, one a soulful singer, the other a reality TV powerhouse, now linked by whispers of revenge, betrayal, and an old wound that refused to die. The internet moved fast, piecing together the fragments. Some claimed it all stemmed from Yandy's ongoing tension with Mendeecees and the messy rumors that had followed him for months. Others said Tamar was never the target, that she was caught in a trap she didn't even see coming. The story spread like wildfire. Paparazzi photos of Tamar leaving the hospital, bruised but composed, became the image of the moment. Her silence only made it louder. Meanwhile, Yandy's team dismissed everything as fabricated drama, but the tone in her posts, cryptic, cold, and calculated, told a different story. Karma comes dressed in many forms, she wrote under a black and white selfie. Fans dissected every word, convinced it was about Tamar. The question on everyone's mind wasn't what happened, it was why. Had Yandy really reached her breaking point after everything that went down with Mendeecees? Was this revenge? Or was Tamar just another casualty in a cycle of pain, loyalty, and pride gone too far? The lines between truth and speculation blurred fast, and before long, what started as gossip had turned into one of the most explosive stories of the year. It started on a humid Friday evening in Atlanta, the kind of night when the city hums with anticipation and drama never sleeps. Tamar Braxton had been booked to perform at a private industry showcase, a small event, intimate but star-studded, with label executives, influencers, and a few familiar faces from the reality TV world. Everything about the night was supposed to be glamorous. But somewhere between the flashing lights and polite applause, tension began to rise like heat off the pavement. Yandy Smith was there too. She wasn't on the guest list, at least not officially. According to witnesses, she arrived late, dressed sharply, her expression unreadable. Those who saw her said she didn't come to mingle, she came to be seen. Rumor had it she'd been dealing with quiet frustrations for months, stemming from the chaos surrounding her marriage to Mendeecees. The whispers of betrayal, the endless online chatter about other women, the speculation that never seemed to stop. People claimed Tamar had somehow been pulled into that web, innocently, at first, through mutual industry connections. But whatever lines were crossed behind the scenes had clearly left bruises that hadn't healed. Tamar, radiant in a shimmering gold dress, didn't appear to notice Yandy's arrival at first. She was in her element, laughing with producers and greeting fans, her energy magnetic. But that calm wouldn't last. One of Yandy's close friends was overheard whispering something to her, something that made Yandy's jaw tighten and her hands clasp together. She watched Tamar across the room, her expression shifting from cool composure to something far darker. By the time Tamar took the stage, Yandy had positioned herself near the back, eyes locked on her every move. Tamar sang with the kind of emotion that could silence a room, her voice soaring, her heart exposed. The crowd cheered, but Yandy didn't move. To onlookers, it looked like admiration, but those who knew her saw something else, a storm brewing beneath the surface. When the performance ended, Tamar stepped down to greet people. Security tried to create space, but Yandy was already moving. The two women met near a corner of the venue, away from the cameras but not far enough from curious eyes. At first, it looked civil, two celebrities exchanging words. But within seconds, their body language shifted. Tamar gestured with her hands, visibly confused, while Yandy leaned in, her face tight with anger. Witnesses claimed they could hear fragments of the argument, Tamar saying, "You got this wrong, sis," and Yandy replying, "Don't play innocent." The tone escalated fast. Voices rose. People started pulling out their phones. One clip, later leaked online, caught the moment before it all broke loose. Yandy's voice cut through the noise, "You should have stayed out of it." Tamar's response came sharp and defensive. "Out of what? I don't even know what you're talking about." And then, chaos. The crowd gasped as a drink went flying, then a shove. Security tried to intervene, but it was too late. What started as words turned physical. Tamar stumbled backward as Yandy advanced, and for a brief moment, all composure was gone. Two powerful women, both wounded in different ways, clashing in a moment neither could take back. By the time guards separated them, Tamar's lip was bleeding, her dress torn. Yandy's team rushed her out through a side exit, faces hard, refusing to speak to anyone. The room was left in stunned silence, the air thick with shock. People didn't know what they'd just witnessed, but they knew it wasn't just a fight. It was personal. Tamar, visibly shaken, tried to compose herself as she was escorted out. Someone handed her a napkin, another offered to call her car. "I didn't do anything," she kept repeating, her voice trembling between confusion and disbelief. "I don't even know what this was about." Within hours, the video clips hit the internet. Blurry, shaky, but explosive. Tamar Braxton attacked by Yandy Smith, one headline screamed. Another read, "Revenge or misunderstanding?" The shocking confrontation no one saw coming. Social media turned into a battlefield. Fans took sides instantly, Team Tamar and Team Yandy. Hashtags trended, theories multiplied, and the story grew bigger than either woman could control. People who'd been at the event started talking. One attendee posted that the argument had something to do with Mendeecees and a conversation Tamar had that got back to Yandy. Others claimed Tamar had unknowingly repeated something sensitive in an interview, something Yandy believed was leaked on purpose. Whatever the truth was, it was buried under a mountain of speculation and emotion. By morning, the story had reached national gossip outlets. News anchors discussed it like a scandalous soap opera. Publicists scrambled. Tamar's team released a short statement. Tamar Braxton was involved in an unexpected altercation last night. She is recovering and surrounded by loved ones. We ask for privacy at this time. Yandy's camp stayed quiet. No statement, no denial, just silence. But her social media told a different story. Hours after the fight, she posted a black background with white text, "Don't poke at peace and expect calm." No names, no details, but everyone knew. The public's imagination ran wild. Was this revenge for something deeper? A hidden betrayal between circles of power? Or had a misunderstanding spiraled into violence that neither woman truly wanted? What no one realized then was that this was only the beginning. The aftermath would reveal secrets, alliances, and pain that went far beyond one night in Atlanta. And while Tamar rested in her home, nursing both physical and emotional wounds, Yandy was somewhere reflecting on the moment her anger crossed the line. And the truth she wasn't ready to admit, that the fight had less to do with Tamar, and everything to do with the hurt she still carried from the man who had broken her trust. The day after the confrontation, the world woke up to chaos. Every blog, talk show, and gossip outlet had the same headline: Tamar Braxton hospitalized after altercation with Yandy Smith. Photos of Tamar leaving the hospital, face swollen, arm in a sling, circulated online faster than the truth ever could. The details were blurred, twisted, and retold 1,000 ways before noon. Some stories said she had been ambushed, others that she'd provoked the argument, but one thing was clear: what happened at that showcase had changed everything for both women. Yandy stayed silent for 24 hours. No interviews, no posts, nothing but that one cryptic message about poking at peace. But silence has power and danger. The longer she said nothing, the more people filled in the blanks. Hashtags like #JusticeForTamar and #YandyExplains started trending. Fans demanded accountability, and every hour brought new sources claiming inside information. Meanwhile, Tamar sat in recovery, replaying the night in her mind like a broken reel. She didn't understand how it had gone that far. She'd met Yandy a handful of times, cordial, even warm interactions. Whatever bad blood existed between Yandy and Mendeecees, Tamar had nothing to do with it, at least not directly. She hadn't betrayed anyone, hadn't spoken ill of anyone.
But in Yandy's eyes, she had become a symbol, someone to project anger onto, someone easier to confront than the man who had caused the real pain. By the second day, Mendeecees himself broke his silence. His statement, posted on Instagram, was short but telling. "Sometimes people let their emotions get ahead of their reason. I pray for peace for everyone involved." He didn't name Yandy, didn't mention Tamar, but everyone knew what it meant. He wasn't defending anyone, he was distancing himself. And for Yandy, that strung more than anything. Inside her circle, the tension was palpable. Her closest friends told her to apologize publicly to get ahead of the story. But Yandy wasn't ready. She believed she'd been pushed too far, that Tamar had said something that night, maybe unintentionally, that cut deeper than anyone knew. A mutual acquaintance had told Yandy earlier that week that Tamar had been overheard on a podcast, talking about women who stay for love when they should walk away. It was vague, but in Yandy's fragile emotional state, it felt personal. The gossip had twisted it into something worse, something that sounded like Tamar was mocking her for staying with Mendeecees through scandal. In her mind, that night was about reclaiming her dignity. But watching the backlash grow, Yandy began to see what it looked like to everyone else. A woman losing control, turning her pain into violence. And once a story like that takes root, it's almost impossible to pull it out by the roots. By midweek, Tamar finally spoke. Sitting in front of her phone, makeup light but her tone serious, she addressed her fans. "I'm okay," she said softly. "I'm healing. But what happened wasn't about anger, it was about pain. I don't hate anybody and I don't wish bad on nobody. But we gotta stop letting hurt make us hurt each other." The video lasted barely 2 minutes, but it broke the internet. Her grace disarmed even her critics. That same night, Yandy posted a message of her own. "I'm not proud of how things went down," she wrote. "Sometimes emotions take you to places you thought you'd never go. I wish her healing and I'm working on mine." It wasn't a full apology, but it was enough to shift the tone. The next day, Tamar reposted it with the caption, "Peace starts with honesty." Still, not everyone believed the peace was real. Insiders claimed there were ongoing legal discussions behind the scenes. Tamar's team reportedly considered pressing charges but ultimately chose not to, citing a desire for resolution over revenge. Meanwhile, Yandy began quietly attending therapy and stepping back from the public eye. The incident sparked a much bigger conversation across social media about women, pain, and public perception. Podcasts debated whether women in the industry were being pushed to compete and crumble under pressure. "This isn't about fame," one commentator said. "It's about trauma, 2 women dealing with betrayal, heartbreak, and pride in different ways. The system loves to watch them fall, but no one talks about why they're breaking." For Tamar, the scars faded, but the lesson didn't. She became more cautious, choosing peace over confrontation, silence over spectacle. Yandy, too, began her own quiet transformation, posting about healing, forgiveness, and rebuilding trust. The women never reconciled publicly, but something shifted between them. The rage had burned out, replaced by reflection. And though the tabloids eventually moved on, those who'd witnessed that night never forgot it. It wasn't just a fight. It was the collision of 2 stories shaped by hurt, pride, and misunderstood intentions. Neither woman was the villain and neither was the victim. They were both human, flawed, emotional, and learning how to survive in a world that watches every crack in their armor. By the end of the month, both had returned to work, stronger but scarred. And while no one would ever know every word that was exchanged that night, the aftermath told the real story. Revenge doesn't heal wounds, it only reminds you where they are. The weeks that followed were quieter, but the kind of quiet that comes after a storm, heavy and tense. Both women had retreated into their own corners of the world. Tamar Braxton was healing, physically and emotionally, her close friends making sure she stayed off social media, focused on peace and therapy. Yandy Smith, on the other hand, was doing the one thing she hadn't done in years, looking in the mirror without trying to control the reflection. For the first time, she wasn't the composed businesswoman, the influencer, or the reality star. She was a woman forced to face the truth about herself, and the pain she'd been carrying long before Tamar ever entered the picture. Behind the scenes, there were still whispers, rumors of legal settlements, quiet meetings, and brand sponsors pulling out of deals until things cooled down. Both women were losing in different ways. Tamar had her reputation bruised by pity, Yandy by anger. And Mendeecees, the man at the center of the gossip, kept his distance, saying nothing, posting nothing, living like the storm had never happened. That silence from him cut Yandy deeper than any comment online could. She had fought battles for him, lost sleep, lost composure, and now when she needed him most, he wasn't there. That realization became her breaking point, not the fight. Tamar, meanwhile, began channeling her pain into music again. For years, her voice had carried heartbreak, but this time it carried clarity. Her upcoming single, recorded quietly after the altercation, was raw and stripped down, a ballad about forgiveness and letting go. When she sang the words, "You can't fight for love when you're bleeding from it," everyone knew exactly what she meant. Her fans flooded the comments with support, praising her for finding strength in transparency. The song became an anthem for those who'd been broken, but refused to stay that way. Around the same time, Yandy was going through her own evolution. She had always been outspoken, but now her words came from reflection rather than reaction. In a heartfelt podcast interview, she finally addressed what happened without deflection or denial. "I was angry," she admitted, her voice calm but honest. "Not at Tamar, at everything. At the years of being judged, at loving someone who made me question myself, at being loyal to people who didn't deserve it. I let all that pain out the wrong way, and someone got hurt who didn't deserve that. It was a confession that changed everything." People who had written her off as bitter began to see a woman unraveling years of pain. It wasn't justification, it was accountability. And when Tamar heard the interview, she sent a message through a mutual friend. "I appreciate the honesty. Healing looks good on her." The industry, notorious for fanning the flames of drama, actually respected how both women handled the aftermath. They didn't milk the scandal for fame. They let it fade naturally, replaced by growth. Slowly, public opinion shifted. Blogs began writing redemption stories instead of hit pieces. Headlines like "Yandy Smith's Journey to Healing" and "Tamar Turns Pain into Power" replaced the ugly ones from before. For once, two women were allowed to move forward without being chained to a mistake. Privately, Yandy and Tamar met again, not at an event, not on camera, but in a quiet cafe in New York weeks after everything died down. No entourage, no makeup, no PR team, just two women who'd been through too much to keep hatting each other. The conversation was quiet at first, heavy with tension. Yandy went first. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I let things get out of hand. I let my pain talk for me." Tamar took a breath before answering. "We've all done that," she said softly. "But you know what? It takes strength to own it." They did hug right away, didn't pose for a photo or make a statement. They just sat there, two women finally at peace. By the end of that meeting, both had found closure. There was no friendship afterward, but there was mutual respect, a rare thing in their world. They went their separate ways quietly, carrying the lesson that not all wounds need to be reopened to heal. Months later, Yandy started an initiative called Women Rebuilding Women, focused on helping women in entertainment navigate conflict without tearing each other down. The first promo video opened with her voice saying, hurt people, but healed women heal the world." The project went viral for all the right reasons. Tamar reposted the clip with a simple caption, "Growth looks good on you." It was a full circle moment that made the internet smile instead of argue. By that point, Mendeecees was just a shadow in the background, his name no longer the center of anyone's story. The two women who had once been linked through his chaos had rewritten their narrative entirely. Tamar found her peace through music, Yandy found hers through purpose, and the public for once chose to applaud instead of mock. Looking back, everyone agreed the altercation had been ugly, unnecessary, and painful, but it had also forced two powerful women to face the parts of themselves they'd buried for too long. It was a breaking point that became a breakthrough. And as Yandy said during one of her later interviews, sometimes the universe breaks you in public so you can rebuild in private. That was the real story, not the blood, not the scandal, but the redemption that came after. Because in the end, Tamar wasn't just bloody and broken, and Yandy wasn't just angry and vengeful. They were both women who found a way to heal, to forgive, and to grow beyond the pain that tried to define them. And that, more than anything, became their quiet revenge against a world that only expected them to fight. If this story taught anything, it's that pain doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Tamar Braxton and Yandy Smith showed the world that even when anger explodes and reputations fall, redemption is still possible. You can lose your balance, break down, and still rise again. Real power isn't in pretending you're unshakable, it's in admitting you were broken and choosing to rebuild anyway. When the world watches, it's easy to perform strength, but when no one's looking, that's when true healing begins. Both Tamar and Yandy learned that revenge doesn't heal wounds, it deepens them. Only forgiveness, even when it feels impossible, brings peace. They didn't win through violence or words, they won by growing into better versions of themselves. So if you're standing in your own storm, hurt, misunderstood, or judged, don't let the moment define you. Let it refine you. Walk away from chaos not because you're weak, but because you've learned that peace is the loudest power there is. Growth is the real clapback. If this story resonated, share it. Let it remind someone that no matter how messy things get, you can still rewrite your ending. Because being broken doesn't mean you've failed, it means you're ready to rebuild. And sometimes, the most beautiful revenge is simply becoming unshakably whole again.